Hello, everyone. How many issues about the great Ronnie Coleman already exist? And it seems there is simply nothing to tell about him anymore. But in one of the interviews of the legend, there were a lot of interesting facts. And I chose for you, as it seems to me, the most interesting details. We'll also talk about Ronnie's worst defeat. About the strange way of tracking the form, we find out what Ronnie thinks about modern stars, and of course, who he calls the greatest bodybuilder in history. All this and more is in this video. To begin with, according to Ronnie, if he could have worked in the police in parallel with his career in bodybuilding, he would probably have remained in the service. Further, his words, "I like that every day something new happened at work, that I could help people. It's the kind of busyness where you never know what's going to happen next. I had to work in a troubled neighborhood, and the memories from those times still haunt me sometimes." Nevertheless, the head of the police station where Ronnie worked made it clear after another victory at the Olympics that he no longer needed to combine a career as a bodybuilder with police work. After all, you need to focus on a career in bodybuilding. Ronnie did just that. We know very well what kind of progress this has turned out to be in the future. But there is an interesting detail here. Further quote, "I have never evaluated my shape in reflection. To be honest, I've always trained for the sake of progress in health, but never for the sake of appearance. When I weighed 100 or 130 kilograms, to be honest, I didn't feel much difference. People around me were just talking about how I looked, how I gained weight, and so on, but I didn't see my form until the pictures came out after the tournament. I've never looked at my progress and condition in a mirror. I almost always didn't train in front of a mirror either. If you watch different videos, you will understand that it really was like that. Even in the warm-up area where we were already rocking in front of the stage, I tried to warm up but not look at myself. I tracked my progress only by the final places, and plus, of course, I had people I trusted. These are nutrition and training specialists who evaluated me. For my part, I followed only external recommendations and knew that I would do everything to become the best." Ronnie noted that he always got along with numbers, calculations, and calculations. Plus, he has a photographic memory. For example, he still remembers his home phone number from his youth. He can read paragraphs from a book a couple of times and memorize it almost verbatim. He always carefully weighed his meals, tracked calories, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and all the details of his diet, and wrote everything down without fail. He doesn't want to publish his old diaries and notes. He says it's personal. And here's another interesting detail. It is generally believed that just as Dorian trained in the legendary underground temple gym in Birmingham, Ronnie also sweated in the Metroflex, where anyone could train in parallel. So Coleman noted that in preparation for the show, he most often trained in the gym at home. With the advent of popularity, he realized that he simply would not be able to fully work in Metroflex. He would constantly be distracted for autographs, handshakes, and other things. There were separate meetings for fans, events at tournaments, and so on, but it was in the gym that he did not want to be distracted by anything other than iron. Over the years, the champion only got stronger. He lifted his maximum weights in the squat and deadlift in the early 2000s, but after a while, around 2003, with the weight gain came a lot of strength. Just Ronnie no longer practiced such approaches. At the same time, he knew about the world records in individual movements and said in an interview, "I could have easily broken these records if I had prepared myself in the appropriate style and trained specifically on strength programs." The huge weights he lifted in the gym were all the result of a bodybuilding split. We can only imagine how much Coleman would have been able to lift by training in powerlifting. Well, returning to bodybuilding, and as for the 2006 Olympia, when Ronnie finally lost, Coleman recalls that until the last moment he was 100%, even 1,000% sure that he would win his 9th title. He didn't doubt himself at all. But just before the final ceremony, Ronnie's girlfriend, Vicky Gates, informed him that she had heard that Jay would be the first, and during the announcement of the winner, Ronnie already knew that he had lost this Olympia. Vicky was just at the judges' tables, and somehow she found out the scores that the judges had set and informed Ronnie about it just to prepare him. And he continues the theme of failures on stage, the most painful defeat of Ronnie's career. For me, this was the most interesting fact, as many probably assumed that this was probably a defeat to Jay Cutler in 2006. Moreover, as we found out, he was 1,000% sure that he would win, but Coleman said the worst moment of his career was when he lost to Lee Priest. That was in 1997. He lost several times to Lee Priest this year. We are talking about the 1997 Ironman Pro. Ronnie thought about ending his bodybuilding career after that defeat, but then he remembered that while he was competing, he had a free gym membership, plus he was supported by his girlfriend, entourage, coaches, and so on. And he continued, but to lose to Lee Priest, who is so much smaller than Ronnie, it was really a very painful blow to his ego as a recognized champion, because to lose to Cutler is okay. Cutler is a huge, really constant competitor. There is a struggle with him, but to Lee Priest with his height, with his weight, it was just a failure. Nothing could compare to this, as Coleman said, and as for the best moment, this is the first victory at the Olympia. At the same time, looking at the collection of his photographs from each winning Olympia, Ronnie could not single out any one best year for himself. He just noted that if he had done everything right, everything was as it should be, and now he understands from the height of his experience that he could have become even better. Back in 2001, he had his closest form to defeat, according to Ronnie, then he almost went to the hospital. During the interview, Ronnie recalls that he felt like he was literally dying at the time. I could barely move my legs and just felt catastrophically ill, but I won anyway. Another interesting opinion was expressed by Ronnie that in 1997, not Yates but Nasser El Sonbadi should have won the Olympics, and easily he impressed live much more than Dorian, who prayed to himself on stage at that time that his triceps, which he had injured weeks earlier, would not come off. We have discussed this Olympia more than once. We know that this is one of the most controversial tournaments in history. Many people believe that Nasser was indeed better at that tournament, but the judges thought otherwise, and Dorian won his 6th Olympia and ended his career. As for Dorian, by the way, Ronnie spoke least flatteringly about him. When the names of bodybuilding stars were listed to him, he complimented them in every possible way, called them the best of the best, and so on. But when it came to Dorian, Ronnie said that, well, yes, he's just a good bodybuilder, but Dorian didn't get into the top 5 bodybuilders according to his version. In principle, this is an absolutely normal story. Bodybuilding is a subjective activity. Each of us has his own preferences. It's clear that Ronnie is no exception. Continuing the topic of comparisons, Ronnie claims that no matter how impressive Kevin Levrone was in the past, Flex Wheeler was better not only than Kevin, but also Ronnie himself. He called it possibly the best in history, but the judges thought otherwise, and Flex did not win at any of the Olympia. And Coleman, by the way, just like his rivals, believes that none of the modern leaders of Olympia would have made it into the top 6 of the time of his performances. They all seem out of shape, Ronnie concluded. When asked to compare himself with Arnold, Ronnie noted that he was certainly in better condition than Schwarzenegger, but Arnold was definitely one of the best in history. If Arnold had Ronnie's specialists and technology, Schwarzenegger would simply be out of competition. As for the best individual muscle groups, Ronnie emphasized Schwarzenegger's pectoral muscles, but called himself a leader in terms of back development. He also mentioned his health. During countless surgeries, Ronnie described how he experienced unbearable pain. In the movie The King, he said that on a 10-point scale, the pain went off the scale to 10 points and even higher. It is currently at about 3 to 4 points. That is really better. He's still training and his leg has been numb, so these symptoms have remained, and according to the doctors, they'll be with Ronnie forever. It sounds disappointing, but Coleman doesn't complain about anything. He has a huge family, a successful business, his name is really written in history, and Ronnie himself has no regrets. At the same time, just listen to how other legends speak about him. Speaking of the bodybuilding world, Ronnie Coleman's name will always stand apart. There has never been an athlete in history who is physically capable and mentally ready to exceed the limits of human imagination so much. Ronnie has reached a level that we may never see again. These are Lee Haney's words. Ronnie represented a completely different dimension. It was just incredible. By his example, he showed other bodybuilders that there is a completely different level in terms of size and proportions. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, the words of the best, in Ronnie's opinion, Flex Wheeler. I didn't have the opportunity to say that I performed on the same stage with Arnold Schwarzenegger or Lee Haney, but I can definitely say that I shared the stage with the greatest Mr. Olympia in history. And I want to end on that note. I really hope that you have learned something new about Ronnie, although I repeat, after so many materials, it is really difficult. I appreciate your support. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications about the release of new videos, and as always, thanks for watching. Sports Guru was with you. See you later.